It's Lukey. I'm back. Dakota's on week 2 of his sabbatical because he has to work. So we got the next best thing. Coach John Pullman. You've seen him on television. He's had a bunch of famous fighters. And I have tricked him to thinking that I know what I'm talking about. So he's joining us, Coach Pullman of Pullman's Boxing Gym. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Okay, so let's just get into it, bro. What do we think of Keyshawn Davis? There's so much to unpack. Do you want me to set it up for you, or do you want to unpack it?
You can go ahead and set it up.
Okay, the guy missed weight by 4.3 pounds, I believe, to be exact. Kind of hit the cheesy on the scale, so he didn't get the memo that when you miss weight, you're not supposed to smile and get the cool photo. Like, that was kind of a little unsettling to me that you're that over and you're still trying to do like the I made the weight pose. That
Quick
was
question.
followed.
Quick question about that. So you know how they do like the official weigh-ins in the morning and the ceremonial weigh-ins like in the afternoon, and that's what you see. What was that? The ceremonial weigh-in? So he must have known already. They must have weighed in the morning, and everybody knew he was 4 pounds overweight, right?
That's a great question, and that's why you're on the podcast, because you actually bring knowledgeable stuff I wouldn't think about. From what I understand, that was the official weigh-in.
Because he didn't look. Neither one of them looked super like skinny or sucked in at that point.
Nobody did, but from what I understood, that was the weigh-in. That was the real weigh-in, and when he hit the scales, everyone was confused. I spit my coffee out and made a stain on a fancy piece of furniture because I heard 139, and I'm like, wait, there was a catch weight for this contest? When did I miss that?
Yeah.
And to me, the strangest thing, and maybe I'm an old school fight guy, if you miss the number, you need to be dejected, talking about making the weight, because you got to make the weight. He's up there hitting the cheesy, doing the pose. Just to be honest, it rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I could understand your point of view, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way as you do. I'm thinking when he gets the scale, I mean, he obviously knows he's way overweight. Let's just say that was the official weigh-in, right? He even if nobody else knows, he knows, and his team knows he's way overweight, and he's probably just assuming because he's the main event and this guy's going to get paid, a good amount of money, that no matter what, the guy's going to fight, right? So I can just kind of do whatever I want. Because, Floyd Mayweather, we've seen him do this with Marquez. We've seen Ryan Garcia do this with Devin Haney. We've seen Shakur Stevenson even come in overweight, who's a good friend of Keyshawn Davis, as far as I know, coming overweight against
Similar situation, hometown fight.
Right. So I'm sure he's assuming that, oh, yeah, this guy's just going to go along with the program. He's the B-side. He's getting paid a nice check, what he's not used to. He's just going to fight anyway. We'll give him a couple extra dollars and he'll fight out anyway. But in reality, not everybody's motivated by only money. And some guys aren't desperate, even though you might think they are. And you learn a hard lesson that way sometimes. Like, you got to be professional if you want things to play out the way that you want things to play out. So all in all, things shake out how they shake out. And I think it'll be a good learning lesson for him in the future.
So for those that just watch my amazing boxing show to be informed on boxing, and thank you, then Keyshawn lost his belt because he chose not to make the championship limit. So the WBO belt became vacant because he made it known that he had outgrown the division. Then De Los Santos' team, like you pointed out, said, we're not going to fight him after whatever period. So Abdullah Mason gets promoted to the main event, the first of many, I believe, for Abdullah Mason.
Yeah.
And then that leads into kind of the other ugly part of this. So Keyshawn comes to the fight. It's a humiliating thing. It was a hometown fight. He doesn't get to fight. But okay, he's coming to support the event. Who knows the true story? The truth is always in the middle. But the fact of the matter is, Nahir Albright beats his brother Kelvin Davis. Kelvin's a good but not maybe great fighter. He's limited to certain degrees. It looked like he was having trouble figuring out a straight right hand. It looked like he was standing a little tall, getting hit with the same punch. And to be honest with you, Albright wasn't, to me, doing a lot of nuance. Like, it wasn't like he was showing him a bunch of different things. It was kind of like right hand dominant. Kelvin had his moments, but I think we both can agree he clearly lost the fight.
Yeah.
Some form of an incident happened backstage between Keyshawn, the brothers, Nahir Albright. And to me, that's almost worse than missing weight, because now you're bringing tomfoolery and lack of sportsmanship into the boxing. where I think this has just been a disastrous weekend for Keyshawn, for someone that's supposed to be a role model and move the sport forward.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. It's like definitely seemed to dig his hole a little deeper by, making a bit of a scene after the fight. It's one of those things, like, he's a young man, right? Early 20s for sure. Maybe he's 25. I don't even know. When you were in, or me or you were in early 20s, maybe not so much you, but I know that I've done a lot of crazy, dumb things. And
yeah, speak for yourself, Bub. I played it straight down the narrow. Yep.
Right. So it's one of those things where Keyshawn is in a position, because of his boxing talent, where he's under, microscope, and everything is highlighted what he does. So if he trips, people are going to see it. And if he trips and he's embarrassed and he tries to run faster and harder and be more stubborn and trips again and harder and fall, people are going to see that. It's one of those things. Heavy is the crown, right, for the king. So when you're in that position, you kind of you're going to have to grow up quick. It's one of those things where I'm not surprised. Like, I'm not surprised by it. Not saying that Keyshawn, by him, I'm just not surprised, because I've seen this story play out a lot of times in this business. You think about what we're doing for a living, right? Dealing with fighters, like Dana White always talks about it. They'll be like, Dana, I can't believe so-and-so got in a fight backstage. He's like, if you only knew the half of what happens backstage, you only see a little bit of it. So, like, this little bit that we saw, that's just a tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more other stuff that happens all the time with fighters that you don't see. It's just the nature of the business and the beast, in a way, because think about what we're doing for a living is literally people are punching each other in the face for a living. That's what they're doing. That attracts a certain type of individual. Like,
well, it's a felony, Mr. Pullman.
Yeah.
If you don't have a state commission it, it's like if you and me go to the park and we spar and someone calls the cops, we might get arrested.
Yeah,
that is possible. The sport that we are involved with.
Right.
And I think sometimes we forget the mentality of a fighter is not that of a guy that became accountant.
That's exactly right. So a lot of times they're going to shoot first and ask questions later, right? What makes them a good fighter is that a little bit of craziness that they have. The same thing that makes them a good fighter is kind of like what makes them do things like this as well, like fly off at the handle. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying that there's not going to be consequences for it, but what I'm saying is I'm not surprised by it. And I also think that hopefully it's not like he's past the point of no return, right? Like, he can take these incidents that happen, the missing of the weight, and the compounding it with, acting crazy, doing something that I'm sure he regrets today, being a sore loser, if you will, for his brother. I'm sure he regrets all that. And the beauty about it is he can turn around and turn this all around and do better and become better down the road and be learn from it and become a stronger, more character inside himself as a person. I just want to say, a lot of times these things happen because, like, I could probably, pretty assertively say that if he hadn't missed weight and he fought and his brother lost, this probably doesn't happen, right? I think the bitterness of him not dealing with something that he was upset with himself, he didn't express that right and get that out of him, and then his brother lost, and now here's a way, let me take out my kind of like anger on this guy, so I just feel as though it's a maturity thing, and I think he can learn from it. And I'm not like sitting here, I'm not like, oh, Keyshawn's dumb and I can't stand Keyshawn, I never want to watch him fight again. I don't feel like that at all. I feel like he's a young kid, probably made some irrational decisions, and hopefully he grows from it and learns from it, because he's a heck of a fighter.
Well, I've always told you this, right? And then we're going to get to my guy Will in the chat. He's jumping in early because he wants to get a superstar trainer to give some assessments here. But I've always said, Keyshawn, it's never the talent that's going to hold him back. It's going to be the maturity, and it's going to be, there's been moments throughout his career where I've seen that he wants to please other people, or he wants to come off as a cool guy. And when I look at those, and it's part of its age, right? We don't have a lot of 25-year-old guys in the pound for pound, but part of, to me, being one of the great fighters of your decade is you kind of know who you are. and you don't look for approval of others, almost to a detriment maybe of getting fans, is that you're set in your ways, you're stubborn. And I haven't quite seen that from Keyshawn. I think that his hardest fights are going to be with him in terms of his development and decisions outside of the ring, more so than what he faces in the ring. I think those decisions could compound errors in the ring, but I think for him, he's in a unique position where the lifestyle and the maturity stuff are going to be more pivotal to his growth than actually the boxing.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a really great assessment, because that's what we've seen. You see him fight in his fights, and he looks like he's getting better and better in every fight. I mean, he looks like the past couple of fights, he's looking probably the best that we've seen. And so in boxing is not a problem. And then it's like the outside the ring stuff kind of shows its ugly head a little bit here. So sounds like a really good assessment.
I'm not saying he's Adrian Broner, but I'm saying that, like, Adrian Broner was once a very talented guy. He didn't pass the check marks of his career the way Davis did. Davis has basically pitched shutouts throughout his career. Broner had the Ponce de Leon fight that I think you and me might think he lost. He had the Paulie fight. He had a lot of fights where you were like, where's the output? Why isn't this? There were, who was the guy that was on that undercard? Amir Khan fought him at LA, at the LA stadium in that comeback fight about 2012, 2013. Do you remember what I'm talking about? November fight? Carlos Molina, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
So he had a close fight with him. And so to me, I think the worst case scenario is Broner, to me, was an example of someone who was deeply affected by negativity of others, but just didn't listen and tried to prove, like, I'm not listening. And it kind of did that to the detriment of his career, where we never saw him achieve. I think Davis is a different level talent, but I'm starting to see some of those red flags of a mid-career Broner after Maidana.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll just kind of piggyback off of what you're saying is from a general point of view is a lot of times it's when you're so young like that and you start making a lot of money and having success and getting attention, you need to insulate yourself with like really, really positive people, that a lot of times some elders that you really listen to, that you'll take advice from and take counsel from, and they can help you navigate through these situations and keep you from flying off at the handle. Because as a young, like I said, as a young 23, 24, 25-year-old guy, myself included, I wasn't always making the best rational decisions at that age. So you do have the rare ones that are mature enough to, they grew up a certain way.
Like Abdullah Mason, who we're going to get into.
Absolutely. But I was kind of a wild guy in my early 20s, so I can kind of relate to Keyshawn Davis in a lot of ways. Obviously, he's a way better fighter than I ever was, but I'm just saying some of the, irrational decisions I might have made. But if you can insulate yourself with a good team that you can kind of help you through that, I think that's always a good idea.
So I'm not comparing this to him, but when I was like 22, 23, my buddy got arrested because he shit his pants after drinking all night, and then he chased the street cleaner to have them run by him so then he could get his clothes cleaned, and the guy called the cops on him, and he was naked chasing the street cleaner, and then the cops found it so hilarious and put him in a jumpsuit, right? And that was like his rock bottom, right? That's like you have a problem. I'm hoping that he learns from this, and these are just anecdotes of concern from older people that love boxing, and that he grows from it. And that's kind of the thing, because this was supposed to be a weekend where he went to that next level. He challenged to be in the pound for pound or in those conversations with the great fighters. And instead it was just kind of embarrassing missteps after missteps. And I think what was troubling to me was it wouldn't stop. It just kept going and going. There was no end to it. It just furthered. The story wasn't he missed weight and here's a fight. It just continuously was about stuff that he did. And now to transition, actually, I should probably read some of the questions, but to transition to Abdullah Mason, here's this young kid who's kind of the opposite of him. Not a great interview, good fighter, stepping up, Probably hasn't fought quite as good of opposition as Keyshawn Davis,
Mm-hmm.
but more than willing to step up and take that stage. And to me, my fear is, did he just open the door for Abdullah to be the main event fighter? Did he just open that door for him to kind of take that thunder that he had built up? Because here's this kid that, put on a show to a certain extent and maybe won some fans over with the way he fought.
I was very impressed with Abdullah Mason. You're right. Like everything you're saying is spot on as far as the way he handled himself with class and maturity and integrity. And that kid could fight really good. Like he totally outclassed Jeremiah. Well, Jeremiah is a good puncher. Obviously he's limited to some degree athletically, not like Abdullah Mason, but Abdullah Mason's mean too, man. Like he wasn't just going to be content with outboxing him. He went out there, and as soon as he found his range and he found his timing and he assessed what he had to do to really get Jeremiah out of there, he did it. And he's a young, mature, and because a few fights ago I seen him get hurt and put down a couple times, or once or twice, kind of fighting a little bit irrational and rushing. He didn't rush this time. The first couple of rounds he took his time, so he's learning and growing, and I'm extremely impressed by him.
Yeah, and I mean he's like. So I think the big thing for me is I'm about as big of a Abdullah Mason fan as you can be from the character to the fighting. He's just about there for a title, but I'm going to be the first one to say that he's still a developing fighter. I don't think you can just throw him in with just anybody yet. I think he has the mentality of saying, I'll fight this guy, I'll fight that guy. He's still growing. I didn't love the broadcast. Tim Bradley's my guy. I didn't like downgrading Nakatila being like a slower, older fighter. There are elements of that, but I think this is what Abdullah did was, who was I watching it was the Pro Box TV fight because I'm a sicko. They were talking about how my guy Eric Bonet fought Emmanuel Moreno, and Paulie Malignaggi was talking about weaponizing his youth. And I thought Abdullah did a great job of fighting an older fighter who, like you said, is a puncher. He's had success catching guys at the end of his shots. And he set a tempo, even without even throwing punches, of just working, forcing him, where he made an old guy fight a fight that an old guy doesn't want to fight. He just simply set a pace that guy was not. I don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah. And he was just too good, too like sharp, too. Like timing was too good. Everything was just on point. His defense was good. Yeah. He was on point for sure. He definitely took the moment. And ran with it for sure.
Well, I think from I don't want to say a business standpoint, from a boxing fan standpoint, the troubling thing probably for Keyshawn is not just did you lose this spot, you lost it to a guy who fights in your weight class who might fight for your vacant belt next. And he went out there and looked very comfortable as a main event fighter. It didn't just look like it was a charity. It looked like, oh man, this guy could actually hold the reins as a main event level fighter. And I think that's why I made the show. Abdullah Mason's stock is up. Keyshawn Davis's is down, because it's like, if you leave this event, you have to wonder in 5 years, which fighter is going to have their career progress more at this point.
Yeah. If you don't tighten up the outside the ring stuff, it always comes back to haunt you. A lot of times with fighters, it's not the boxing that's the problem. We can go down a list, right, of guys. You said Adrian Broner. Take a guy like Edwin Valero. How good was that guy? But he just lost his mind, or I don't know what was wrong with him. It's like there's so many guys that destroy themselves before they don't even get to the chance of being their full potential in the ring. But maybe this is just what Keyshawn Davis needs, like maybe he needed a little wake-up call to tighten his stuff up, to tighten some things up, to be ready for a moment that can be bigger than this for him. I don't know him personally, so I don't want to speak too much.
Yeah, no. You let me say the controversial things, and you can just say things like on the fence. So if you run into him and he gets mad at you, you can say it was all that guy. But
it's not even that. It's just I just deal with a lot of young guys like that, so I know how they are, and I feel for them because I was them at one point. And you hate to see a guy get in the way of his success. But at the same time, you can't save them sometimes. Sometimes they have to fall down and learn that way. So
I think that part of what I'm seeing is in the social media generation, there's like two forms of people. There's like the internet personality and the person they are.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be humble for some people that are raised in this internet generation. And to me, it's like the humility is what Keyshawn needs to go to that next level, at least from a fan perspective. He's got all the things, but even just something as simple as like, man, I messed up. I'm sorry to the guys that paid. I think that would have shown some level of getting to another level in the sport, that I think that humility is one of those check marks where to get to that all-time great status, you have to be humble, even if you pretend you're not.
Yeah, well, maybe this is an opportunity for him to do that, because I'm with you. That would have been the way to handle it, right? Like, damn, I just can't make the weight. I apologize.
I'm coming to the show tomorrow. It's going to be a great show. Watch my brothers fight.
Right.
And then I think the problem too, I think was, and this is just, I get why they put Kelvin as the TV fight, but he probably should have been the ESPN Plus fight, and Tiger should have been because it was I think part of what happened with Kelvin is, not to excuse the performance, it was a big stage for a guy that hadn't been quite at that stage in a 50-50 fight. And I think
I don't mean to cut in front of you, but just a side note about Albright. Albright's the same guy that gave Keyshawn Davis kind of a hard time when they fought, and it got changed to a no contest, correct? Because of Keyshawn Davis test positive for marijuana.
He caught him with that darn pesky right hand, I believe, in the 9th round. The thing that Wu does really well is he has that right hand. I was hoping that he'd put a left hook together. You as a coach could explain it, but to me, it was like a little frustrating because it was like Kelvin in several rounds, I couldn't figure out what his strategy was. And Nahir was 2 jabs, throw right hand. And I was like, maybe throw a left hook or vary it up. But it was kind of a frustrating fight to watch because part of it, I feel like Nahir thought he was physically stronger and holding him, he could overwhelm him.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't really like a flow to the fight. It was very sporadic.
Right. Yeah, no, I've seen the same type of thing. But I'm sure that kind of aggravated Keyshawn more at the end, and his fuse was even shorter for that because he had a tough fight with Keyshawn Davis or with Nahir Albright as well, and then he beats his brother. It's like probably just really aggravated with this guy.
I mean, Nahir Albright might have messed around and got a rematch with Keyshawn Davis because on paper it's a no contest, even though he beat him.
But it was like a majority decision or something. It wasn't like
it wasn't like a blowout. But no. I mean, I think the majority decision was one of those. Like, it wasn't a blowout, but I thought Keyshawn pretty clearly won. What I remember was Keyshawn got caught with a right hand in the 9th, and in the 10th he kind of took the 10th off. Like, whoa, this guy can punch. I don't think I want to stand with him. And I feel like those type of fights, people always give like an opponent 2 extra rounds if a fight ends strong. But it was a good, like, Nahir Albright beat Michael Dutch over back when Triller was throwing fights. He's a good prospect that was beating a lot of guys, and he has not small, but he has a regional promoter from Philly, and he's been a good fighter. It's just like, a lot of fight fans only watch like certain level of fighters, and they expect if the other guy comes in, then he's not going to fight. And like I was telling my girlfriend, those Philly guys are tough and they love to talk. And when you see that fight, it was a tough man's fight, and he was talking for the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no, I don't want to get you in trouble. Let's go to the questions. My guy, Will, Edwin probably would have still fought, but I'm glad Sampson and his team declined it. Keyshawn is an embarrassment. Strong opinions in the chat. Do you guys think Bob moves away from Keyshawn? I don't think you can, because the talent level with Keyshawn Davis is so special. I don't think you can move away from a fighter who has no hyperbole generational talent. I don't think you can just move on from a fighter like that. How many fights away is Mason from a world title in y'all's opinion? I like the use of y'all's in there too. I say that too. I think his next fight is a vacant WBO lightweight title fight. I think his next fight's a title fight. What do you think, Mr. Pullman?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think he's worthy of that for sure.
So Johnny Quest, big fan of his TV show. Now he's a retired YouTube commenter. Mason versus Noakes for the vacant WBO lightweight title. I think another curveball too is, you saw the rankings. Gabriel Flores fights on Thursday. If he wins, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Mason Flores for the vacant WBO lightweight title as well, or Noakes. I'm not sure. See, the thing is, I'm not sure if Noakes has any fights scheduled. I don't think there's any on the available, but when they start sitting down, we don't know how he's being used. Noakes versus Mason's a good fight because I'm not sure if you've ever seen Noakes, but he can really punch.
Yeah,
He's a puncher, man. He's fun. I wouldn't say he's Ricky Hatton, but he can hit, and he's not hard to find, and he's fun. Okay, more comments. Adam, I hope Keyshawn learns from this and matures, but I'm no longer a fan right now. Harsh words, but that's what people say in this sport. I want to see Mason fight before the winner of Pitbull and Fierro before he goes any further. Wait. Adam, I got to figure out what you're saying here, bro. So leave a comment. You want to see him return before July 19th? Is that what he's saying? I just don't think that's possible. I don't think that he like Top Rank has 2 dates, a June 21st date in Newark. He can't come back then. And then a July 26th that we know of. That's after the Pacquiao fight. So July 19th is very quick. It might look for most people working very long way in the boxing world, in Mr. Pullman's world. July 19th is just around the corner. Like camps are getting into the swing of things. You need to have your weight down, all that stuff. If that's what you're saying, Adam, I just don't think that that's possible. I don't think that you could have him come back to the ring given, just the state of boxing currently.
I think that I'd like to see Mason. I mean, what you said about Gabriel Flores makes a lot of sense. Because I know that fight will probably be easy to make. I just don't know if Noakes will, because Noakes is number 1, right? I don't know if he's gonna be okay with that. But I'm sure they would love, Top Rank would love to make Mason versus Flores.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point either fight would be makeable, but I just think for my fans, my program, those are 2 fights that you should be aware of, and that's going to be a main event level fight. Any undercard fights on this card that you liked?
I'll tell you, I thought that like you brought it to my attention, but the Tiger Johnson fight and Bohachika, that fight was actually pretty good, pretty competitive. They were kind of hard on Tiger Johnson, the commentary, but I thought he boxed pretty good. Like that guy was a little tricky, and he gave a lot of people, some good fighters, some trouble. So I thought Tiger Johnson fought pretty disciplined. Fought pretty well. I thought he actually fought better than I've seen him in some of his previous fights. So I didn't really understand the harsh criticism that he was getting from the commentary.
I want to act like I know something. So let me throw some questions to you, okay? And I'm eating some food, so it's going to sound bad on the mic. Was Janelson kind of sitting on a right hand and really looking to land some smoke right hand on him? Because I saw him looking to land something heavy, and that was kind of keeping Tiger timid on that jab, because it was like he felt like he had to be reactive in case a power shot was coming. Were you seeing that, or was I seeing stuff?
Yeah, they were definitely wary of his right hand, because you could tell that they trained that way, because every time they were showing his corner a lot with Brewer, his trainer, who is a good fighter himself.
And my buddy. So that's even more important than being a good fighter. If you're a friend of mine, that trumps all that shit. So.
That's right. But he kept telling him when Tiger Johnson would move to his left, which is towards Bohachika's right hand, he kept telling him, go the other way now, go the other way. Like, so they were very wary of his right hand. So I'm sure you're accurate about that. But he took away his right hand pretty good with the movement. So I thought that was pretty smart.
I think the problem with Tiger is he's a really good fighter, but he's yet to have like that sensational performance that wows people. He's like a substance fighter. Yeah. And in social media, it's hard to be a substance fighter because people want to see like a cool highlight. And you can't see like a cool highlight video of Tiger Johnson yet. So he's one of these guys where it's annoying. Kind of like Troy Isley too. Troy's got some knockouts, but they're going to have to earn it the old-fashioned way, winning meaningful fights to establish themselves. Maybe more than 3 knockouts in a row, doing some muscle poses, and everyone's their favorite rapper sharing the video,
Yeah, I thought that Troy Isley fight was kind of close, actually.
Well, I think that was a tough one because he fought a guy with a 10-inch reach.
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't care how good a guy is.
The guy wasn't bad either.
No, but he had 10-inch reach. Like, that's a hell of a that's a fight for guys that have never fought. Like, if guys 10-inch reach on you, what would you say? Half of the ring they can stand and hit you? Quarter of the ring?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, especially if you're the type of fighter who likes to keep your distance, like Troy's kind of like a boxer where he wants to box from space. So this is tricky. It's definitely tricky to navigate that for sure.
Yeah, and he was like one of those guys with like bad rhythm and stuff. He's like an avant-garde jazz musician, so he's like throwing you off.
Yeah.
He was like he'd fall into you, then he'd snap. Like I thought it was like I was gonna text Troy this, but I thought it was a great fight for his development because those tough fights against guys that you probably don't think are that good prep you for like world title fights when things go wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That you can't buy that kind of experience. And a lot of times all these guys, they want to be so sensational, you know, all the time in every fight. But in reality, having those fights is what is going to make you better. Even though people are going to talk, oh, you can't punch, or he's nothing special, or this, that, and the other. You really just have to beat the man in front of you. As long as you keep beating the man in front of you, you get yourself to the big stage. You'll have some nice experience. You'll have a lot of tools in your toolbox. You'll have so much stuff that can help you get through tough fights. Like a guy like I for some reason I'm thinking like Angelo Leo, because he just fought not too long ago. He never really was this, you know, sensational. He had that crazy knockout against
Venato.
The top ranked card not too long ago to win the world title at 126. But he never was like this knock your socks off type fighter. He's like a workhorse, getting it the hard way. Had a lot of experience, a lot of decisions. And then when he got his first world title chance, he was able to win, you know, having all that experience. And now he just became a
second. He won
he won his first world title at 122. He beat
Tremaine Williams, Mighty Midget.
I know. Yeah, I remember him when I was a kid from the same area. But whatever. So that was his first, and then he won a second world title and the second division. So here's a 2-weight world champion quietly, who a lot of people don't even really know who he is, probably. And
then just went to Japan.
Yeah,
and be a decorated fighter that most people don't know about in a hard-fought, grueling fight. And people are like, oh, man, I did a video on him, and people were like, oh, man, because I was saying he's one of the most underrated guys. And people were like, oh, I don't know. We're rating him evenly. And I'm like, well, this guy's doing a lot of stuff that, like, if it was a popular fighter, they'd get a lot of credit for. And he just simply doesn't get the same credit. And that's why I say he's underrated. What did you think of the Fabio Wardley knockout of Justis Huni?
Oh, man. He pulled a rabbit out of the hat, huh? I mean, I feel for like a guy like Justis Huni, how you say his last name, who's winning, you know.
Huni.
Yeah, Huni, who's winning pretty convincingly and, you know, makes a mistake. One mistake, it's like brutal. That's so brutal. He got to go back to the gym. And like he handled the loss with class and everything else, but he got to go back to the gym. He's kicking himself right now. Like that is the most frustrating thing when you box so well and then you make one mistake. If you just could have kept your focus a little bit better. I mean, it's just, it's brutal. It's just brutal for him.
Remind me of Tony Harrison, kind of. You know how Tony, like for years, only lost like 1 minute of like a round in all of his fights, but that 1 minute was my guy Willie Nelson catching him with a punch, then Charlo catching him. It's like my guy Chris Lightning Lopez would always say, it's like there's guys that could skip rope for 20 minutes, but for 21 minutes they can't keep their focus and the rope hits. There's some boxers that can't keep that focus, and you know, I think also Wardley's a puncher.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is no matter how good your focus is in that ring, you're fighting another good fighter, you're going to get hit. Like you have to be able to still take something. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to be able to take some of the punches as well. Some guys just don't take it well, I guess. I don't know if that's Huni, but I've seen like Tony Harrison for some reason he just couldn't really take the punch that great at the top level. But yeah, you have to be able to take the punch too. Like that's the guy. Like if you want to be an all-time great, look at a guy like Floyd Mayweather, whose defense was so great. Pernell Whitaker, another one, known for their defense, but those guys were tough too. It's not like they never got hit. Like they got hit too. I seen rocked and then they come back tough.
Stronger Mosley fight for Floyd, Castillo fight. You know, he got hurt in that fight.
Even but like Pacquiao cracked him a couple times too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and that's a 10-year anniversary if you want to feel old.
Oh wow,
that happened last May. That was 10 years.
I also want to change the subjects, but talking about underrated or people who don't get spoke about, you brought to my attention before the fight happened was the girl fight, Crews-Dezurn versus The
Citlali Ortiz.
yeah, the small Mexican girl. And I mean, not a lot of people probably saw the fight, maybe, or really, but I was very impressed with that little Mexican girl. Like I thought that she won the fight, and they gave the decision to Dezurn, and one judge had it 98-92, which is like hard for me to.
That
like
judge missed a good fight.
Just unacceptable.
That judge missed a good fight, you know.
Like, how do you? But I was extremely impressed by that Mexican girl. Not to say like she's like, but she was 4-1. She's 5'3". What weight did they fight at? 168.
168, and that was one of my early things. Is like sometimes like you get these lazy narratives, right? She's 5'3" at 168. That's a disadvantage. Well, what if everyone she spars is way bigger than her? And what if all the big girls never spar 5'3" girls? Is it really a disadvantage for the girl that everywhere it's like a southpaw. Southpaws love fighting orthodox. I feel like height, like Pitbull Cruz when he fought Gervonta, gave Gervonta issues because he was shorter than him.
Yeah.
And Gervonta, I feel like, likes fighting bigger guys.
Used to it, yeah. You're comfortable. You have so many tricks for it that you cultivated. But like that girl was coordinated. She threw good punches. And Dezurn is like Crews-Dezurn. I don't know, too much wrestling for my taste, but
it's an older fighter. She's always had like a style that I'd call utilitarian. She does what's needed to win, but it's never, at least over the past few years, never been like a clean fight. And I'm not saying she's a dirty fighter, but it's I
understand.
It's a physical, grueling fight that's probably going to have a lot of referee dictating the action with her fight.
It's not easy for a referee for sure.
Yeah, like if you're reffing her fight, you're probably like, man, I'm gonna really work. It's not like you're in there with the Lomachenko where there might not even be a break. You know what I mean? It's like, they're working. I thought that it at best it would have been a draw.
Yeah.
I thought Ortiz probably did it. Cruz wins the fight. Crews-Dezurn wins the fight. But I mean, I think Ortiz should get another great opportunity from this. And I remember from the amateurs, she was knocking girls out in amateur shows with headgear. And you always remember those type of people when they show up. And she was sleeping people. And it was like probably about 2017, 2018, beautiful brawlers in Pacifica, just catching girls. And like they were out for a while. Like I wouldn't say they're doing like, but it was like they had to like stop a ring. You know how they have 2 rings? They're like, ring 2 will commence in 5 minutes. Like she was stopping it because she stopped a girl and they had to like make sure everything was okay. So like you always go, okay, who's this girl again? And then I remember,
she was impressive. She was definitely impressive.
Yeah, I mean that's it.
I just like to mention someone like that who nobody's like. She gets her shot. To me, she takes full advantage of it. And then that's it. Like nobody's ever gonna, because they didn't give her the decision. That's it. Off to the next, and nobody's gonna want to fight that girl. So I want to bring it to people's attention that at least mention her because she deserves it.
Yeah, I'd love to see her fight Clarissa.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother.
But I mean the problem with Clarissa, right? And I'm a Clarissa fan, is she's almost too good for the weight classes she fights at, where it's hard to get compelling matchups.
Yeah.
So when people emerge, it's like you're almost like, how would she do with this? Because you're looking for a competitive fight. But I think the strangest thing is she's 4-2. She's 4-2 as her pro record, and she is not a 4-2 fighter. So somebody is going to make a mistake being like, oh yeah, let's just bring in this 4-2 girl, and we're going to get this. And then all of a sudden they're going to bring someone in and realize they got a world of hurt.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. Hopefully for her, she gets some more opportunities.
I hope so. Anything you catch on that undercard? I saw Brandon Moore, Stanley Wright. It was an all right fight. Brandon Moore won the fight. He's looking better lately than he did in the past. Kind of a little more refined lately. I saw Joseph Hicks lost. That was kind of strange to me. He was a top amateur.
To be honest, the only fights I watched on that card were the girl fight and then the heavyweight main event.
Okay, so I'll just pretend like they didn't happen. If you
no,
care.
no, I just don't know. I just don't have anything good to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, Joshua.
I think you're on mute.
My mic unplugged, so I have to They make these Cable's so flimsy, so like now the audio is bad, but it's just the way it is.
What about last night? Did you watch Nakatani? I know he beat the guy.
I watched Nakatani. I'm a sicko, bro. You're acting like I have a life. Like
I was up watching the fights, and I fell asleep before his fight. But I watched the dude that was 1-0, and he fought some dude that was 17-1. I don't know their names. One guy was from Vietnam, one guy was Japanese. He was like a world champion amateur, a 118 pounder. But I was impressed by that. I was impressed by both those guys. That was a good fight.
So you're actually more hardcore than me. I just watched it in the morning. So I watched.
I was trying to stay up, but I couldn't make it.
Yeah, I watched the main event. Like Nakatani, to me, I've gotten a lot of criticism over Nakatani because I have him ranked in my pound for pound. I don't have Gervonta in my pound for pound. People go, what has he done? And I say, well, he fights champions consistently. So that makes him a pound for pound fighter.
Yeah.
People
forget that. And I'm a Gervonta Davis fan, so this is not me throwing shade at him, but it's not a popularity contest. It's boxing. And if you're really going to rate guys by their boxing, if you don't watch all the boxing, you're essentially just spewing out something you heard on, the mainstream media, if you will. Like, oh, this guy's the best fighter because they keep showing him to me. How do you know? You don't even know everything that's out there. There's so much boxing that's happening all the time. So in order to have a real accurate pound for pound list, you got to be really kind of always on the lookout and always trying to watch. There's so much to watch.
I mean, just his run that got him on my radar, Angel Acosta stopping him like it was nothing, knocks out Maloney at a lower weight, which was a knockout of the year. And then he goes and he beats Alejandro Santiago. Then I saw Vincent Astrolabio. I know you're like, this is so boring, but Vincent Astrolabio had a hard fight with Maloney, stops him in one round, made it look like a tune-up fight. Like doing stuff like this where you take guys who are having grueling competitive title fights that are very close decisions and stopping them in 1 to 2 rounds or outclassing them.
Yeah.
Like this is, and in this fight, once again, it's like he's in there with a top guy, title holder, and he finds a way to separate and he gets the stoppage. And it's, to me, it could be sacrilegious, but I think he's an improved version of Inoue. He's doing the same thing Inoue was doing with a little bit more boxing skill.
A little bit more defensive prowess.
A little bit more defensive, but it's like you can see the influence of Inoue on his style. Mm-hmm. You can see that he saw someone come before him and that the way Inoue fights has greatly influenced the way that he approaches fighting. And if they were to fight, which it feels like they're gearing up to, I would not be shocked.
I was going to say, do you think we see that fight?
I think we do because they both have that warrior spirit. Like, who wouldn't fight between the two? Like, I feel like they both.
It wouldn't be that. It would just be more like, does Inoue looking up at 126, or is he going to be okay to stay where he's at and wait for Nakatani?
I think he has to because I almost do. So theoretical saying, do you feel like Inoue's hit a weight ceiling?
Yeah, it's definitely getting dicey.
It's like he's starting to get dropped a little bit. Yeah. It's like maybe he can go to 26, but if he goes to 26, I feel like you have to pick and choose the opposition a little more than his career has ever been. Yeah. I get the sense that he's not a guy that ever has wanted to do that. So if he moves up, he's going to want to take on the best guys, and that could get weird. So I just think that if he stays at this division, which I don't think he goes to featherweight. If he does, he probably fights Nick Ball if he were to move up, because that's the most probably the same sized guy.
Yeah.
But I think he would have moved up after the Fulton fight, right? Or after the Topoulos fight, right? Because he became undisputed. And when he didn't immediately move up a weight class, it kind of told me that he's staying here.
Well, he said in one of his interviews that 126 would be his max, but there's definitely, like what you're saying, there's definitely reservations about that because he would have just moved right up after he became undisputed, right?
And that was his career trajectory, was kind of what made him great in my eyes was his fearless move throughout the weights.
Yeah.
He defied weight classes, kind of not quite like Pacquiao, but it was like a different Pacquiao to me. It's like he starts out at 108, and then I think he was what was he? He was 108.
Yeah, he skipped. I think he skipped 112.
115.
He skipped 112, I think. I think he went from 108 to 150. He was a champion. Then he fought.
Yeah.
Then he went right to 115. Was a champion. Then he was 118. Then 122. I think.
And he just like once he got rid of the competition, he's like, let me go to the next division. And there was never really like somebody in the chat will find something, but my memory of his career is let me fearlessly go after the best guys.
Right.
So I'm here, let me go after him. And then he, like you said, he aces the exam. So it's like not just does he go after him, it's like he's a pursuer. And he kind of fell in a weird era where we had those type of guys. Canelo was doing the same thing, pursuing great fighters after Golovkin. Conor McGregor, he never wanted to be the king. He wanted to pursue the guys. And in a way, in a weird way, was very much like them. He never wanted to hold down a crown. He always pursued like the perceived greats. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, in a way, it's. I think it's a trick to. It's not a. I mean, not like a trick where it's not hard to do, or it is very hard to do, but it's a trick to keep yourself motivated, right? A lot of times when you're the champion and you're just defending the throne, it's harder for you to kind of like always get up. Like you're gonna everybody gets up for the king, right? It's hard, but it's hard sometimes when you are the king to get up for the number one contender. But if you can continuously make yourself the predator, you continuously make yourself the predator. It's another good way to keep your motivation up.
No, I'm with you. Like I think that's the thing. I think that it's just so hard to explain like in a way's legacy to people. Because you have to understand where people were at in their career compared to like where they might be historically right now. Like when he fought guys, that was like Omar Navarez. That was a big fight. Jamie McDonald was a guy who was a reigning champion who had really impressed me beating Kameda.
Yeah.
Like just because you don't know who these guys are, the moment he fought them were historically relevant. Juan Carlos Payano, I believe, had beaten Rasheed Warren. And, he's a then he stops him in like a round.
Yeah, that guy was tough. I know. It's again, it goes back to what we were saying is just because you don't know the people don't mean they're not great fighters. Like there's so many guys that you don't know who they are that will give your favorite fighter a hard evening.
No, yeah, it's and that's the genius of matchmaking. One other thing before we preview the fights, and then I got to get out of here, is what I'm sure you probably didn't catch it, but Jay Apataya won. He's got 2 wins.
No, I read about it. I didn't see the fight, but I've read about it.
Yeah, he won. It's kind of a typical Jay Apataya performance, just overwhelms a guy. Really fun puncher. Him and Zordo have to fight next, right? There's like no real, if Zordo can beat Doritos, which I've told you, I think he beats him, but that's a hard fight because whenever you get in with a puncher, weird things can happen. But I don't see Zordo having issues because he's kind of like, he's got that attitude I like. He's a little too stubborn to lose, like a little bit. Like I don't see him being knocked out by a guy. Like he's a little too macho, too stubborn. But Jay Apataya and Zordo, they're so built for each other because they're just so different, but so the same.
I would love to see that fight. Yeah, from a fan's perspective and just in general, I'm like, I'm really close with Zurdo's management team. I have a fighter that's managed by them as well and promoted by Zurdo Promotions. So like I know, I've been around them a lot, and I would love to see that fight for Zurdo and for boxing. I think it's a huge fight, and I also think it's one that, like you're saying, we're all curious. These are the best fights. Like we're all curious because who wins that fight and how does that fight even look? What does that fight look like? Because we know it's not. I mean, it doesn't seem to me that one guy's just going to dominate the other. It seems those are the kind of fights we want. We really truly don't know how it's going to play out, and so those are the fights we want to see.
Well, I think the other thing too is, and this is probably inconsequential for most people. Most people don't care about this, but for me, I do. So I'll bring it up. Best cruiserweight since Usyk. It answers that question, right? True. Because since Usyk has left, we haven't really been able to say this is the guy that took ownership of the division since he left. It's been a division of, well, Usyk left that division, and now we're waiting to see who the guy is. We thought it might be Zordo, and then Jay Apataya kind of emerged by upsetting Bradis. these are the two best guys. This gives this division in this new decade an identity. It gives it ownership and it gives it a place in the sport.
And it actually makes that division pretty exciting, which hasn't been a glamorous division in the past. To have two guys that are both stars in their own right, and they both put on good fights and get a lot of attention. I think I feel like, especially on DAZN, a lot of the guys they're kind of anointing Opetaia as the guy, but they think Zurdo's number 2, which I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, he's more exciting, but I don't see him as more talented. And I think for guys like you and me, we look at either. Well, I just see a guy in Zurdo where he might not, like, he's an action fighter, but you might not be as drawn to him because he's gonna, he has different ways to win fights. Whereas Jay Opetaia is like a sledgehammer. There's only one way to use a sledgehammer.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's accurate. Yeah, Zurdo hasn't really been knocking people out at cruiserweight.
Yeah, I mean, but like he's in there exchanging Chris Ballum-Smith. He beats him. Ballum-Smith bounces back, beats Brandon Glanton, who's a tough cookie. So that shows just how good he is. I think it's an exciting fight. Now let's go into the last segment, which I know you're dying for this one. You've been waiting all. You told me, you sent me a text. I can't wait to break this one down. It's the Richardson Hitchins-George Kambosos preview. How do you see this fight going?
I'll start by saying this is that I've been studying and following Richardson Hitchins for a while since he first turned pro. He spent some time in my gym, came for like a training camp, sparring with a couple of the fighters there, and I knew then that he was going to be a champion. He is a top flight boxer, great fundamentals, hard worker, tough, fast, all that. I think the world to him. I think Kambosos had a great win against Teofimo Lopez, but I also think he's just out. He's just out of his league in this one. Just to talk about Richardson Hitchins, he had a tough fight with a guy that Keyshawn Davis. What's his name?
Gustavo Lemos. He had a tough fight with Lemos. Now, to be fair and to play devil's advocate, Lemos also missed weight against Keyshawn Davis and looked pretty drained when he tried to make that weight. So he's
a 140 pounder. He's not a 135 pounder because he fought Richardson Hitchins.
Well, he had fought some of his career at 35. He fought Hitchins at 140, and I think the team thought they could move him back down to what they thought was his perceived best weight. And he probably hit an age and a lifestyle where he couldn't get back down there.
Yeah. So that was a tough fight for Hitchins, and it happens. All fighters have tough fights sometimes. It happens to all the greats. But I'm very high on Richardson Hitchins. I think he's a fundamentally sound boxer. And I think he's going to pretty much just, shut out Kambosos and possibly stop him, to be honest.
So here's my real deep analysis. I think George's a great fighter. I spent some time with him in 2019 in Florida at JC Javier Centeno's Sweatbox gym. Really, really faster than I thought. That was the big thing I saw with Kambosos. Like, his hand speed and his foot speed are faster than you would think. So if you're just studying tape, you're totally going to get screwed when you go in there because you're going to be like, man, this guy's a little faster than I thought.
Yeah.
The one criticism I have, and I shoot it straight, bro. He can't really initiate offense that well at the highest level. He's a great counter puncher. He can sit his feet and exchange. That hand speed goes well. He's creative with those. When he's having to initiate, we see weird fights with him, right? So we saw it with Mickey Bay, Lee Selby, Maxie Hughes, Devin Haney. When he has to lead and create the action and get his jab going and cut the ring off, it doesn't feel like that's his thing. His thing is to want to have somebody come to him, punch, and exchange with him. What does Richardson Hitchins do really well?
Yeah, he's just a great boxer from space.
He's a great boxer who can dictate pace and possibly walk him into things. So the one thing I will say, though, is Hitchins is showing a lot of respect to Kambosos, which I think is good. Humility is good. But that also tells me that he sees a little something in him, because Hitchins can be a disrespectful guy in the buildups. So the fact that he's showing some respect to Kambosos means that he knows that there's something to be aware of. That's me reading between the lines.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't really been following the build-up that closely to say, but I think Hitchins actually in his last fight too against the other, he fought Paro. Was it Liam?
Yeah, Paro. Yeah.
He actually, I think he turned the corner too, like because he started off that fight a little slow, not even necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, he could have lost the fight. It was like 2-2, and then Lenny got in his ass, and then he kind of shut him out in the 5th round.
Yeah, he kind of like it was an coming of age moment on the big stage. So I feel like that right there is going to pay a lot of dividends for him going forward from here. And yeah, I definitely think I'm very high on him. I think at 140, the fight to make will be him and Teofimo Lopez.
I still am on the Albert Puello island, bro. I think Puello might be the guy, and everyone laughs at me, but he's a tricky puzzle, man.
Yeah, I just don't think he has the
dynamic ability.
Yeah, that's the athleticism, if you will, that those two guys have.
I just feel like he's gonna take you into a split decision. He's that old school Carlos Molina, Richard Abril.
What about Gary Russell? Or Gary Russell? What about him? Because they had a tough fight.
He beat him.
I know, but
but that's how he wins fights. See, this is the thing about my guy Puello. He beats really good fighters, but he just because he wins 55-45 and it's not fun or exciting doesn't mean he's not a good fighter, bro.
No, I'm not saying he's not a good fighter. I just, again, I don't know all the 140 pounders out there.
I'm just saying, everyone always craps on my guy Puello, and he's well accomplished. He's doing everything. People say fight these hard fights, win them, and then when it comes to Puello, oh, I think he's lost 3 fights, but he's won them. I'm just saying, people have double standards when it comes to Puello.
I think 140 is a hot division. I think that's a hot division. I mean,
it's always a hot division, coach. Like there's certain divisions, like that's like we hot take lightweight's hot right now. Like, like the one that's not hot is middleweight. We wish that would catch fire, but it isn't. My guy Bipolar Boxing went down to Hall of Fame weekend. He said I believe that's Gary Antonio or Antoine Russell would be good too. Yep, there you go. Look at our educated fans getting in here. One other fight I wanted to ask you about. Andy Cruz is fighting a fighter that I have no clue who he is. I'm going to take a guess and say you don't know who he is either.
What's his name?
I will read you his name, so then we're not disrespectful, because I guess his family probably will tune in and then they'll hate me. That does happen, by the way. Show up fight week and they're like, "Oh, you suck. We hate you." And then like you see them everywhere you go. So you're going to get food and they're like there. You're going to get like a beer. They're sitting at the bar. Like it's always the way it works. His name is Hinrori Mishiro, and it's an IBF lightweight eliminator, which is consequential because
Japanese?
I believe I don't want to be racist now.
No, that last name sounds Japanese.
I think he's I've literally, for the life of me, I've never seen this guy fight. So like this guy could be sitting next to me where I'm going after this, and I would not know I was next to him.
Yeah.
Like, and there's been a lot of those moments in my life where I've had no clue who the fighters are fight week. He's 17-1.
It goes back to what we've been saying though. Like, there's so many great fighters that even we don't know about.
Yeah, I mean, so he's obviously done something to be an IBF lightweight title eliminator. I think it also might speak to how scary Andy Cruz is to fight, because there might be a lot of guys that are like, maybe I'll wait on another shot, because I was there. Look, bro, I wanted to be an Andy Cruz hater. I wanted to be like, this guy is not going to translate. I was there in San Francisco. That guy is a problem, bro. When he catches rhythm, I don't know if you've seen it, but he punches with you. He pulls back and then he punches again. Like, he doesn't stop.
He does things that you can't teach, for sure.
And he's got like when I was there, he's got a demeanor that's very good for a fighter. Like, he's cocky, and you can see the arrogance, and he dances, and he has like this arrogant strut when he gets to the ring that I never saw on television, where you feel his demeanor, that he feels vastly superior. And he's like, I'm coming in dancing because I'm going to beat the hell out of you. And there's like an energy he brings that I think is, it's a little, and then the hand speed. He was fighting like a Filipino, well-established 30 fight or so fighter. And he was making this guy look like a nobody, and he was sitting on his shots. Oh my God.
I would not be surprised that when the smoke clears that he is the guy at lightweight. I wouldn't be surprised.
So he wins this fight, which, they fight the fights. So, he could get hit with a right hand. Right hands change a lot of plans in boxing. But let's say he wins him and Muratalla. That's the fight. Because Muratalla's got the interim belt. Lomachenko
I like Muratalla. I think he's a solid fighter, but I think that Andy Cruz is special.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's the fight. If he wins, Loma retires. All that bipolar boxing. I was spreading the word about your channel at Hall of Fame weekend during the Crews-Ortiz fight. No one knew who Cruz was, but I told them to watch your preview for that fight. Bipolar boxing, thank you. That's why we have great people, and that's why we get Hall of Fame coaches like John Pullman to give us 1 hour of their time. How do we do this? Final thing, because I really got to go in a second.
Yeah, do it.
What's your best memory of Vasyl? Actually, screw that. What's your lasting memory of Vasyl Lomachenko? He just retired this week. How would you sum up Lomachenko to someone?
Man, Lomachenko is incredible. I'll tell you this. So I had the experience and the honor of spending some time in camp with Lomachenko because I had a fighter that was sparring him when he fought Guillermo Rigondeaux. I had a left-handed fighter that was Josh Zuniga. You know him. He was sparring with Lomachenko for that fight. So I had the honor of spending some time with him behind the scenes, and I've been around quite a few high caliber fighters, luckily, and some great boxing people. And I will say that he was the most impressive guy that I ever seen train. Like,
let me force it out of you. Why?
Well, just the way that him and his father were so in tune, that they had their own way of doing things. They didn't even need to talk much. Just he right to the point. Everything was precise and sharp, and it's not like he does anything. He hits the bag.
It's not like something wows you. It's not like a girl in a bikini and she comes in and all the guys look in the gym.
No, he has all that. He does. He's fast. He's strong. When you hear his punches on the pad, you hear his punches on the bag. You see him when he spars. He's just he handled his camp with integrity and honor, and I was just very impressed by the guy overall. I learned a lot from watching how those guys work together, to be honest.
My guy Man K Crazy jumped in and he said, "Is John Moggy's coach?" John, are you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
How do you like that the chat knows about Moggy?
It's great. I got
we got a boxing chat. Yeah,
I wore a shirt. Yeah, Moggy. Yeah, Moggy's another great. Handles himself with a lot of integrity and honor, and it's a pleasure to work with him.
Well, I just think that's cool also that when you come on, we have a chat that actually is following your fighter from the ground up, and they're really watching. So people like my guy Man K Crazy has seen you working the corners in those fights because he's watching these grassroots shows. And I think that's cool that we're building a community wherever I go. Of that, my memory of Vasyl Lomachenko is different than yours. It's a fighter who was not motivated by money. It was legacy. So in an era coming out of Floyd Mayweather where it was like getting the most purses, I saw Lomachenko as someone that was always pursuing what's the best legacy fight, what's the most historic thing I could achieve, what's the biggest thing. And in many ways, his professional career probably didn't pan out how people wanted it because he didn't try to manufacture anything. It was, what's the best fight I can take? What's the most meaningful fight? He fights Nicholas Walters probably when no one would have wanted to fight Nicholas Walters. It was perceived as a 50-50 fight and destroys him to the point where Walters doesn't fight. He fights for a belt in his second fight, loses, fights for a belt against Gary Russell Jr. in his third fight. These are things people don't typically do. And the thing I always point to is he did a lot of the heavy lifting for those lightweight titles to be unified for that undisputed to happen. So while people point to Teofimo and Kambosos and Haney being undisputed, Lomachenko did a lot of the fights to make sure those belts got unified and went through him. He did a lot of the traveling and a lot of those fights that people didn't want to have to do. And to me, that's his legacy.
It's well said. I mean, well said. He's old. He's like a throwback fighter, man. I remember for his first fight, he wanted to fight for the world title. He asked Top Rank, "Can I fight for the world title in my first professional fight?" And they said, "No, we can't. You got to get ranked first." So his first fight, he fought to get ranked. in the top 10. He won, and then he fought the second fight for the world title against Salita, which he lost like a tough kind of split decision fight.
Well, here's the other thing too that people talk about. He's got 3 losses, right? He could have stopped. The referee could have stopped the Salito fight in the 12th round. Right? That was close to being stopped. No one ever talks about that. He was close to being stopped.
And I don't know that Lomachenko lost that fight, to be honest.
But I mean, like that, he almost stops the guy in the 12th round. That could have been waved off right there. Teofimo was like a 50-50 fight. He was coming on strong. That was a close fight. The Haney fight is another close one.
He beat Haney, to me.
But I mean, like, there's a world where he's an undefeated fighter.
Right.
And for a superstar fighter, he never really got those superstar breaks that most traditional A-side fighters get.
But I think the beauty in all this, what we're discussing, and what you said about him, is that I don't think he really needs that, which is like the beautiful thing about him is he did it for the legacy. He did it for the reasons to like push himself and try to be the best for himself. I don't think he really cares to have people ranting and raving about him or all the money and accolades. I think he's just doing it to genuinely prove to himself he's the best.
And I think that's why his legacy is going to live on than other fighters from this era, is that when it's all said and done, people are going to be like, oh, do that like Lomachenko. I mean, think about how fast from being pro, I was in the gyms at the time hearing guys go, oh, this guy moves like Lomachenko. Like that didn't happen with other fighters. Like I'm a big Linares guy. I loved Linares on his comeback. People never said, oh, he throws his hands like Linares. He's got a good rate.
I thought when Linares was young, he was a beautiful boxer. Like
I loved him.
Yeah.
He reminded me of Ray Leonard. It sounds so silly to say it, but like he felt
fast
like
hands, so coordinated. Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, he's another one that I love because he had that warrior spirit. So it's like it was just his body would fail him, but his mind never did. It's like he always had those cuts, but he wanted to keep going. But I bring that up to say the thing that I knew Loma was special was when he advanced his career so much so early and guys in the gyms started saying a young pro, you referencing him for footwork. Do you know what I mean? Like I think you get what I'm saying, but like you don't hear people say like, I'm going to throw this uppercut like Tank. I'm going to throw an uppercut like Tyson. I'm going to throw this left hook like Trinidad or somebody. But Loma was a pro fighter that people were saying things about like a legend.
Yeah. And even Usyk. Usyk has a lot of Lomachenko in him.
For sure. You see the influence, right? But we got to get going. John, thank you for coming on. You filled in for Dakota. Dakota's probably going to be pissed. He'll be like, bro, this guy's trying to take my spot. I'll be like, no, you're not taking it because Dakota's my dude. But I hope you had fun. How do people give you money and stuff?
Oh, please keep the money. But you can follow us on Pullman's Gym across the board. And we always appreciate it. And I always appreciate you, man, having me on. And I always love talking boxing with you. And again, I think it's great, this community you're building, and the fact that these guys are supporting fighters coming up. They're like boxing freaks like us, you know? So
well, yeah, I mean, you got guys on trying to reach out to me, asking me about 6-rounders. They're like, there was a 6-rounder in LA. Who won it? It's a 5-1 versus a 6-2, but they're both good fighters. So-and-so was sparring. I'm well informed. So it's a great community. We got good people, and hopefully we just keep building. But thank you for taking time.
Please, and, thank you.
If you go to LA, go visit John's gym. Tell him you saw him on the show, and hopefully he doesn't punch you.
No, never.
Okay,
there you go. Everything, man. I'll come on anytime, man. I always appreciate it.